My best live wrestling experience took place in Dallas, Texas, and it was for NXT TakeOver Dallas, the first ever WWE show that I'd been to. Well, the first live pay-per-view I've been to. I've been to a WWE live before, but this was like nothing else I'd ever been to. Like, the atmosphere was insanely good. Like, obviously being there and being part of the American crowd was like something I'd never done before, and that was just, it was just a whole other creature. Like, from the word go, the card was stacked, but I want to kind of focus specifically on one match from that show, and it was Sami Zayn versus Shinsuke Nakamura. Because Jesus Christ, I've just actually watched it back before we did this, and Nakamura then, and so Sami Zayn's, let's just set the scene, Sami Zayn's last match in NXT, Nakamura's first match in NXT, and both men just absolutely, we've all seen it, tear the house down. To be fair, the crowd are going mental from the word go, absolutely going nuts. I was like, I'd had to convince my friends to actually go to the show because they didn't want to go and they didn't know anything about NXT, and I'd try to sell them on it by showing them who Sami Zayn was, and they were like, oh, who's this little ginger bloke who wears pajama bottoms and listens to ska? Genuinely the reaction I got. And I was like, look, just trust me, come to the show. Anyway, we went to the show, and that match in particular, that was the first introduction, because I'd kind of only just got back into watching wrestling again about a year or two ago. That was the first time I'd really seen like the strong style wrestling, like, because obviously that wasn't so much a thing back in like the Attitude Era so much. This was something I hadn't really seen. Nakamura's stuff was, I think it's still the best match he's ever had in WWE, period, because I don't know if it's just because he's driven, because he was his debut. The knees that he hit Sami Zayn with and the stomps to the head, and some of the shots between them both, to be fair, was just nuts. And I was honestly, I think at that point, because like I say, I had been out of wrestling for so long, I was only just starting to understand what it was like to mark out again. Like, and this was a big moment for me. Like, them two wrestling were just going mad. You could see even Sami Zayn, when Nakamura was coming to the ring, was sat in the corner and had this massive grin on his face, because he was like, he was trying to play it cool, but he realised how cool of a moment this was that Nakamura was there. His entrance as well, like, I forgot how well presented he was in NXT. They really used to spend a lot of time making you think this guy's a star, and obviously it's slightly different now, but a little bit different these days, but it was incredible. And just the atmosphere, being there in general, was just like nothing I'd ever experienced before. And I don't think it dawned on me until we were asked to do this video that was actually, like, in my head I always said, oh, WrestleMania, my first WrestleMania was Dallas. But actually that was the first show, because that came before. So I think it actually goes down as like my favourite show of all time, purely because I was there. And like, you've got like the matches before it were nuts, like the tag team match between the Revival and American Alpha. Bayley and Asuka was on that as well when Bayley lost the title. You had Finn and Samoa Joe. Like, the whole card from top to bottom was class, and Baron Corbin and Apollo Crews were on there too, I think it was. Baron Corbin, Apollo Crews. Oh, no, it was a dark match. It was Baron Corbin and Austin Aries, I think it was, something like that. And it worked out well for him, that, didn't it? But yeah, across the board, just a great watch. And honestly, memories that I will, like, imagine that as your first ever experience. I just looked out, and then obviously, then there was WrestleMania, and that was okay. But yeah, can't forget that, and there's a live experience. I think the only thing that's come close to reliving that sort of big pop was the Hardy Boys returning at WrestleMania 33. But other than that, that is, without a doubt, my best wrestling experience live.
My favourite live wrestling moment, well, I'm going to be an asshole, and I'm going to throw a few in there, because the most recent one would have been All In last year. I know, All In, what are you doing? But being if you were part of that crowd, you know, everyone was just, there was so much love, and there was so much positivity in the room, and everybody knows I love positivity. But also, my first WrestleMania I ever went to was WrestleMania 24 in Florida, and they had that big countdown clock. And because I'm a big nerd, and because I'm a big loser, when we got to like 8, 7, 6, a little tear rolled down my eyes. I couldn't believe I was at WrestleMania. But I was also very lucky to be at Shinsuke Nakamura's debut when he came out at NXT to fight Sami Zayn. And that, again, it was much to do with the crowd, and WWE had done a great job at that point in kind of selling Shinsuke Nakamura as the next big thing. Look at that now, right, what's happened. But they'd be the ones that come to mind. Or actually, one more, just to be that guy, sorry. But last one, I went to a Raw show in London at Earl's Court, My mate somehow nabbed front row tickets, which was incredible. You can still see this, because obviously it's Raw, it's live, and I wasn't doing this. It just, the way the two things sort of came together. I was a big Triple H fan, I loved it, and I was cheering Triple H, and at one point he took his top off, and on TV it looks like when he takes his top off, I cheer even more. And I'm all right with that, because it still makes me laugh to this day. I just really wanted to see Triple H's physique up close, and why the hell not? He's one of the reasons I started lifting weights. So there you go, nice ranty answer. Thanks, Triple H.
I just changed my mind literally 30 seconds ago before I came in here, because I was going to say, like, I was at WrestleMania thingy where The Undertaker got beat off Roman, and I was like, oh, The Undertaker is probably retiring. Was going to say that, and then the Hardy Boys came back that night, and there was all these great memories. And then, of course, we've done all the WCPW shows, all the Define shows. There's like a million amazing matches and fun memories I've got from those. But genuinely thinking about it, right, and the best live experience I've ever had at a wrestling show was when I was 13. It was Triple A, or WWA, or AAA or something. I've got it written down.
It's Triple H, mate.
Triple H, that's the one.
Is it WAW?
WWA it was, and it was just, WWF hadn't been to Newcastle. I think they'd been there once since this is 1999, I should point out. No, 2001? Yeah, 2001. Right, I had it. So it's 2001. WWF haven't been in Newcastle. They've been there once since 1993. Right? They just never ever came there. We're still like 2 years away from them doing Insurrection in Newcastle. So wrestling was this like Saturday morning cartoon show to us. It was the thing we had to sneak up for on Friday night to like watch when we weren't really allowed to. Like, it wasn't real. You know what I mean? It was just like a daft thing on telly. And then we're like, my best friend at the time, Rich, was like, oh, there's wrestling on at the arena. And I was like, oh yeah, let's go to that. And we didn't know anything about it. We hadn't seen a poster, we just knew it was wrestling. And we turned up, and the roster was like stacked. Like, it was absolutely insane. I'm going to read out the card for the night, right? This is a random indie show in Newcastle in 2001. Psychosis versus Juventud Guerrero.
What?
Black Wedding match, Gangrel versus Luna.
Oh,
Yes! Banging and banging!
yes!
Buff Bagwell versus Stevie Ray.
The stuff.
The Stuff. Singles match, Grandmaster Sexay versus Disco Inferno.
What?
Tag team match, Conan and Nathan Jones versus Lenny Lane and Lodi. Yeah, that wasn't great. Main event, WWA World Heavyweight Triple Threat match, Jeff Jarrett versus Scott Steiner versus the Road Dogg Jesse James. Random Saturday night in Newcastle, no wrestling ever came through the city, and that was just on. Like, we couldn't believe one or two cool was there. Like, obviously, we didn't know at the time, like, they'd obviously all just been released or they had like breaks in the schedule or whatever. Jerry Lawler was commentating, and they were pumping the commentary through the arena. Like, it was genuinely like, we could not believe we were getting to watch this, and all of a sudden it just became real. Like, all of a sudden these were actual wrestlers that we'd seen perform and we'd met and we'd seen, and it wasn't just like, oh, next on SmackDown it's Test versus Raven. It was just like real all of a sudden, and it was, yeah, set me for life. That.
You're right, that's far better than WrestleMania.
That was our WrestleMania at the time though. Jarrett versus Steiner versus the Road Dogg. Like, that's an insane main event for 2001. And they did all the moves. I can distinctly remember, right? The finish for the Grandmaster Sexay match, he did the hip-hop drop over the top rope. He went over, obviously. Does the hip-hop drop over the top rope, right? Wins. They got a very close approximation of his music playing. He's dancing in the ring by himself, right? And we had that, you know, the little roll thingy cameras. We used to, like, roll them on. We had one of them.
Hell of a camera.
Hell of a camera. We had one of them, and we got this great photo, we thought, of him coming off the top rope, right? And I went into school the next day, and I was like, oh, have you taken the photos to Boots to get developed? He said, well, we couldn't get the photo out of the camera properly, so my mum had to like do it under a 90. So then we got the photos back from Boots. They're all absolutely ruined. You can vaguely make out his little goggles, and that's it. And that was my favourite wrestling live memory.
Right, okay, I should clarify this first, right? I'm a 33-year-old married feminist, okay? So the following anecdote in no way reflects my current worldview. Right, I was 13 years old in 1998, and somehow, despite the fact that my dad hates wrestling to this day, always thought it was the lamest, goofiest stuff, was trying to get us into Formula One, I somehow convinced him to drive me 7 hours from Newcastle to London to take in WWF Capital Carnage. Now, it was a terrible show, but at the time, I hadn't discovered the word work rate, so I thought it was absolutely great. I kept looking over at my dad, he was like, bored, rigid, and I was getting a bit guilty here, because even though I was 13, I still felt like, he's driven us 7 hours here and he absolutely hates this. So the show goes on, a lot of matches happen, and I'm giddy as hell because it's the Attitude Era. I'm 13 years old. He doesn't really like it. And then one iconic moment happens. And bear in mind, I'm 33 years old. I would probably classify myself as a feminist, but at the time I'm 13, right? Rampant hormones. Jacqueline's bare breasts get exposed.
Classic.
And I'm thinking, this is fantastic, this. This is before streaming, before broadband. I'm thinking, probably the best thing I've ever seen. So I'm not looking at my dad, obviously. I'm obviously not looking at my dad at this point. So the show goes on, you know, beyond this moment, I'm having a great time. It's the Attitude Era in full swing. The show finishes, and I look over at my dad. His mouth still hasn't closed. His mouth still hasn't closed. I said, Dad, did you enjoy that show? And he went, aye, son, it was canny. I didn't know at the time why he was loving it so much because, you know, he's married and he's my dad. He absolutely loved it. I should clarify, I also went to WrestleMania 30, saw Daniel Bryan, my hero, second on the list.
This is first.
This is first. I was 13, it's fine.